Hello, everybody. Come on in. Hello, hello. Come on in. Come on in. Just waiting for more people to join. And then I will start tonight's live screen. Live stream. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. Come on in. Today's live stream is Q&A Tuesday. So just come on in. I'm just going to start it in a few more minutes. Just waiting for more people to join in before I get started tonight. I hope everyone's doing well. It's freezing here. And I don't like winter. So I am coping with the snow. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If you can hear me, let me know yes. If you can't hear me and you just see my mouth moving, say I can't hear you. And we will get started. Okay, so looks like I'm okay. So welcome everyone to tonight's live stream. My name is Susan from Earth Tones Naturals, where I help you who are struggling with your natural hair gain confidence and love and embrace your natural hair. Tonight, we are going into Q&A Tuesday. So questions that have been submitted ahead of time, I will get to first. And then if I have any time afterwards and you have any questions, I will try my best to answer them. And also, a few weeks ago, I did a live stream when my daughter did my hair in box braids. So she did it again, not box braids. She did these twists. And if you're wondering, this is my natural hair. This is all my hair. I don't have any extensions in. And she did this. It took her about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do the process. And she used our perfectly twisted curl styling cream to do the twists. So this is what they look like. This is what they look like. Very juicy. So just a little bit of actually perfectly twisted curl styling cream. And then she used a little bit of jelly on top just for some additional hold. So I am thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly impressed. I said every time I get my hair done, she's going to be the one to do it because she does such an amazing job. She actually did them a lot better than I would do them on myself. And I've done these twists before. They are pretty time consuming, but they're one of my go-to styles for winter, especially when it comes to just really protecting my hair or doing low manipulation hairstyles. I don't the When I did braids a few weeks ago, that was the first time I've done braids in years, and I liked them. They were really nice, but they were a little bit heavy. So jumbo box braids for me were just a little bit heavy, but also the itching, the itching on my scalp from the actual synthetic hair is no joke. So we do have a product for that. It's the Scalp Renewal Complex. So I did use that quite a bit, but I just didn't like that feeling. So I'd rather not be doing box braids a lot. But if you are a person who does a lot of box braids, the Scalp Renewal Complex is really, really, really good at really combating that itching. But because of that reason, and because they were a little bit heavier than I wanted them to be, I mean, they are jumbo. So that's what she could do. If I had to do them again, I would probably do smaller braids, but I do like these twists. I love them. So she did these. Amazing. Very, very talented. So that is my hairstyle today, brought to you by my daughter, Nisa. All right. So today we have a bunch of different questions. I am going to start with I am not sure the person's name. They didn't fill out the name part, but she has fine hair, not sure of her porosity, and she is a curly type 3. So the question she has is, good evening. I would like to know why my hair has residue after applying the moisturizer. So with this specific question, there's a few things that I would need to know to answer it properly, specific to the person that asked it. I'll find out some more information, and then I'll just kind of give a general broad overview as to why you would get residue with a moisturizer in general. So I'd first want to know which moisturizer is being used. So currently we have two. We have the Curl Quench Hair Butter and the Coconut Moisture Milk. So those are the two moisturizers that we have. So I'd want to know which one is being used. The other thing I'd want to know is how much of the product is being used on the hair. Is it a little bit? Is it a lot? Are you saturating your hair with the product? Is it is there residue after it's dried in? When does the residue occur? And are you using any particular product underneath the moisturizers? So, with respect to this question, just in general, if you are experiencing any type of residue with a moisturizer, you want to check a few things. You want to check the application process. So, was it applied to damp hair or was it applied to dry hair? So, that was is the first thing that you'd want to find out. In general, the more concentrated an application is, the more you're going to probably get buildup or residue on your hair. So if you go for more a dry or damp application, you might get more residue on the hair than a dilute application, just because more of the product is actually touching the hair. So if you're getting residue, that is one reason why. Another reason could be if you are using a leave in product underneath the moisturizer. And I find that a lot of my clients do still do this. So they'll do a leave in product, whether that's from a different brand or let's say a conditioner, something else they're leaving in underneath the hair butter and or the coconut moisture milk. So I will say that if you are using the coconut moisture milk or hair butter, there's no need to to add a separate leave-in conditioner underneath those two products. Those two products will definitely hydrate your hair, they'll condition it, they'll soften it. So there's no need for a separate leave in. So you can skip that separate leave in step altogether. But sometimes I find that if you do use a separate leave in product and then you go and use the hair butter or the coconut moisture milk on top, sometimes you will get residue just because the nature of conditioners is that they contain ingredients that actually sit on top of the hair. And the more products you have sitting on top of the hair, the more prone the product is for building up on the hair. Another reason you could potentially get buildup is if prior to using the leave in moisturizer, the hair wasn't completely clean. So it could be if you conditioner washed your hair or you didn't use a shampoo that had a detergent that was I don't want to say strong, but for lack of a better word, strong enough to remove any oils or buildup from the hair. We are living in a time where things like sulfate based shampoos are kind of looked at in a very bad way. But I will say, just to take a more measured approach to it, there is a time for the use of a sulfate based shampoo or a harsher detergents, and you would want to use those if you are clarifying the hair. And when would the hair need to be clarified? It would need to be clarified if you are using a whole lot of oils, butters, pomades on your hair. Some people still do that. They will use greases and oils and butters to moisturize their hair because they think that it will actually help to moisturize their hair, and they're using those things every day. And so if you are using really gentle cleansing agents on the hair, sometimes they are not strong enough to break down those oils and butters. So that's a time where I would use more of a sulfate based shampoo to clarify my hair. And then I would follow it up with a deep conditioner to restore the oils that the sulfate based shampoo removed from my hair. So it's something to consider that if you're conditioner washing or if you are using really gentle shampoos, but you're using products that are leaving a lot of buildup on the hair, those shampoos might not be enough, detergency enough to actually remove the oils and butters. And if that happens after you cleanse your hair, you could get this residue that is remaining on the hair, and then you go and put on your conditioner, you rinse it out, and then you go put on your leave-in. And what can happen if you see balling up of product on your hair, that will typically, that's a telling sign that before the conditioner sorry before the moisturizer was put on your hair wasn't completely clean. So that's another reason that you could get a buildup or residue on your hair. The last reason is I find if you have to apply a moisturizer to your hair every single day, the more you apply it on your hair, the more it will build up. And again, it's just because of the nature of conditioning agents. They stick on top of the hair. They do a very good job of doing what they're supposed to do, which is to seal the cuticle, soften the hair, stay on top of the hair to reduce any friction. That means it helps to detangle the hair and also kind of restore the water repelling properties of the hair, which is a good thing. It's not a great thing to have your hair like suck up a lot of water. It can actually lead to damage to the hair shaft. So that's one of the things that conditioning agents do. but they are positively charged molecules, which means they really stick onto the hair because the hair in general has a net negative charge. So if you're using the product every single day, which is what I don't recommend having to use a moisturizer every single day. If you do, then it's probably not doing a good job of hydrating the hair, or you're not using enough of the product, or you're not using it properly, meaning that you're maybe using too dilute of an application when your hair actually requires more of the product to touch the hair to actually get a result. So if you are using product every day, it will definitely build up on your hair. So those are the reasons in general that you would find product buildup. Michelle Smith says, are oils recommended to be applied to the scalp? Yes, you can use specific oils on the scalp. It just depends on the type of oil. So if you could elaborate and just let me know which oils you're referring to, then yeah, I can definitely answer that. But yes, you can apply certain oils to the scalp. I don't think every single oil out there is good for the scalp. There are certain oils that will have an effect on trying to hydrate the scalp more than others. But yes, you can apply oils to the scalp. So, um, Beverly, she has type 2 and type 3 hair, so wavy and curly, and the strand thickness is medium. And the reason I ask sometimes for what is your curl pattern, what is your strand thickness, what is your porosity, is that that all determines how products are applied to the hair. And that gives me a better idea. It's part of whenever I see clients for consultations, it's part of my curl analysis um, to actually get the strand thickness, the hair density, the curl pattern. That gives me a lot of information about the client's hair texture. And so this is really important when anyone's asking any questions to kind of find out this information. So she says she's not sure about her porosity, but she says my curls are a bit stiff. What am I doing wrong? So I would need to know some more information. Are you putting a product on your hair and that's what's causing the stiffness? Are they stiff without any product on the hair? So when is the stiffness occurring? In general, for curl stiffness, though, I mean, if the curls are stiff and you're using a styling product, it could be that it is a strong holding styler. Like, for example, the Max Curl Enhancing Jelly from our line would give a stiffer hold to the hair. And the reason is because it really does create a very strong gel cast. And that strong gel cast is responsible for the definition that you get from the product, but it also leaves the hair a little bit stiff and a little bit crunchy, which is why underneath the curl enhancing jelly, the Max Jelly, I always like to put some type of leave-in product, whether that's the light leave-in or hair butter or coconut moisture milk, because what those products will do is they will soften up the hair underneath this stiff gel cast. So just wanting to get a little bit more information, Beverly, if you're on this live stream, about when your hair tends to be stiff and what products you're using. All right. Okay, look, so the next question, Letitia, she has type 4 hair, medium strand thickness, and the porosity is normal. And she asks, when will you be coming out with the new gel for persons whose hair currently flakes with your available gels? So that should be the next, for anyone who's wondering about a revamped Max Curl Enhancing Jelly. That will be available. Oh my goodness, I'm going to say sometime later on this month to January. The raw materials have been ordered. There is some seriously crazy lead times from my suppliers with a lot of our raw materials. So that is what is holding up a lot of our production. And so unfortunately, we're subject to the issues of the um, the supplier shortages of a lot of raw materials and longer lead times. So that's what's holding up the production of that product. But hopefully they're scheduled to come in later on this month. So hopefully production can happen later on this month or in November for that gel. All right. Mitch or Mish. Um, Curly, she has type 3 hair that's thick with high porosity, which means that her hair is going to lose moisture quickly. So that's what the high porosity means. So it'll accept moisture, but it'll also lose it. So there's an issue with moisture retention for high porosity hair. I just had a baby 3 months ago, and I'm experiencing shedding around my hairline, mostly around my temples. My hair switches between high and low porosity 3C curls. Can you give some tips to help? So if you're wondering about the postpartum shedding, Yeah, that is a part of that hormonal change that happens with delivery. So typically, what will happen during pregnancy is due to the hormonal profile that has shifted during pregnancy, the hair will typically go through a lengthened growth phase. So the phases of hair growth are anagen, which is growth, um, catagen, and then telogen. Telogen is the shedding phase. At any one point in time, most of the hairs on your head are going to be in the growth phase. And then you have the shedding phase, at which maybe 10 to 15% of the hairs on your head are going to be shedding. Anything that kind of disrupts the hair growth cycle, which can be hormonal, it can be stress related, surgeries, hospitalizations, illnesses, severe stress, low thyroid function, low iron, for example, low nutrient status. All of these things can actually shift the hair growth cycle in favor of increased shedding. And part of what can shift it is a change in hormones after the baby's born. So during pregnancy, the hair goes through an extended period of anagen, which is why most people, their hair grows long and lush and lovely. They have a full head of hair. And then all of a sudden, due to the shift in hormones after the baby is born, the telogen phase happens. And that results in increased shedding. And typically, some people might find it happens more so around the hairline. Some people will find it other parts of the actual scalp. So one of the things I will recommend is just continue with your recommended postnatal supplementation regime. I'm not sure what that looks like for you, so I can't even really speak about that specifically, but you want to continue with that. You also want to get your iron checked. Just to make sure that you're not anemic, get your vitamin D checked as well, just to make sure that you don't have low levels of vitamin D. And there are topical products on the market that can help with that. However, a lot of them, just as a caution, say not to be used during pregnancy and breastfeeding. So it is, I know, I understand it's frustrating. Like it happened to me 3 times with all of my children after they were born. I had some type of shedding and my hairline kind of went, and it was really a long time before it came back again. So just keep up with your supplement regime with respect to what you're able to take right now. I'm not sure if you're breastfeeding. I'm not sure. Did you say that? I'm not sure if you're breastfeeding because there's a lot of things that you can't take if you're breastfeeding as well. But keep up with your postnatal supplement, iron, making sure that those levels are fine, vitamin D, getting any thyroid checked as well, and then look into some topical medications or topical treatments that you can use once you are maybe done breastfeeding. We can, you can look more into that. And if you want any specifics, then you can definitely contact me. But without knowing specifics of the situation, in general, that's what you'd want to do. It does happen. It's unfortunate that it does happen. There are products on the market that can actually help with hair regrowth topically. Some of them have really been clinically tested. So you can look into those. But again, I'm not going to recommend them if you are breastfeeding. You would want to do it after you're finished breastfeeding, just because any topical, anything you're taking internally, that is always the caution, pregnant and breastfeeding women, because we just don't know, what will happen. Um, especially for baby, if you're putting anything on your scalp, theoretically nothing, but you just want to be careful. So that's my answer there. Hopefully it helps. I know I didn't get into specifics, but I'm not able to because I just don't know the specifics of your situation, but in general, that's what you want to do. All right, Z asks, so she has type 3 hair, not sure about the strand thickness, but she thinks it might be medium, low porosity hair. So low porosity hair in general is hair where the strands tend to be either medium or thick in terms of their width, and the hair tends to feel pretty wiry. I can't explain it any other way. It's not necessarily coarse, it's more wiry feeling. It is structurally very strong. So even though low porosity hair does have its challenges, it is structurally strong hair and can typically grow to longer lengths just because it doesn't break as much as fine hair does. However, one of the major challenges with low porosity hair is the inability for it to get properly hydrated. However, what I will say is once low porosity hair is hydrated, it remains that way for a long period of time compared to high porosity hair. Once high porosity hair is hydrated, it doesn't stay hydrated for long periods of time unless you put ingredients or products on your hair to lock in the moisture. So, one of the major challenges with low porosity hair is that initial hydration, but once it's hydrated, it can remain hydrated for a long period of time just because the cuticles do remain closed. So she asks, my hair feels dry after day 3. What steps can I take to figure out why and rectify the problem? So just exactly what I was saying. Um, it, with low porosity hair, it is definitely a challenge to hydrate. So here is what I found in general with low porosity hair. Sorry, with respect to hydration, the type of moisturizer you use does matter. It definitely matters. Okay, so you want to use one that is high in the humectants. So glycerin, agave nectar, for example, honey. You want to use a high humectant moisturizer. The reason I'm saying that is because one of the things that these humectants do is they help to soften the hair. So one of the challenges with low porosity hair is it's strong, but it also feels rough to the touch if it's not properly hydrated. So we need some softening to be occurring with low porosity hair. The next thing is that humectants are really honestly your best friend for pulling moisture into the hair. Okay, so glycerin, from the earth tones line, either the coconut moisture milk or the hair butter would or applying the product to your hair properly. I find is one of the best ways to apply a moisturizer rather than soaking wet hair. And the reason is that for low porosity hair, what I found is that you need a more concentrated application of product. I find that the more water for low porosity hair, the worse outcomes with respect to hydration. So you need more concentrated application. The challenge though is that when you do a lot of product or put a lot of product on your hair without a lot of water, it tends to lead to product buildup. So I do recognize that there's that balance that needs to be achieved between a large amount of product, which your hair typically does need if it's low porosity, because the cuticles are so tightly bound. What happens is you have to apply more and more and more of a product on your hair for it to get an effect. So I do understand that. I do understand that. So now we have to find a balance between the amount of product, the amount of water, and reducing any buildup. So whenever I apply any product to low porosity hair, what I tend to do is I will mist with water to make the hair damp. I do not do a soaking wet application because what tends to happen is your hair will definitely feel dry once all the water has evaporated from your hair and barely any product will have touched your hair, or any product that is supposed to be absorbed through the cuticle into the cortex of the hair doesn't really get absorbed in. So I will typically mist the hair with water to make it damp, and then I'll apply product and I'll see how the product looks on the hair. Typically, on low porosity hair, what you find is that if you have a lot of product on the hair, you have buildup and then you have balling up of product. So, in order to reduce that or eliminate that from happening, I typically will add another layer of water just to kind of emulsify the product a little bit so it smooths onto the hair better. So, that is my process of applying product on low porosity hair. I go a lot by feel and not necessarily by look. So I'm very tactile when it comes to how much product to apply to the hair, because I know that if my hair feels dry when the product is applied, it is not going to retain moisture. So I'm looking for a soft feel to the hair, a flexibility to the hair. I'm looking for a softness and a moisture. So all of that in is going to help me determine if I've applied enough product. So once the product is applied, I do not let my hair stay out in the open. I will typically twist my hair. So, twisting the hair, what it does is it helps to reduce the surface area that water evaporates from the hair. So, if your hair is out, your hair is going to dry quicker than if it's bundled and their surface area is reduced. And for me, that's twisting. So, one of the ways to get your hair to really retain moisture, especially if you're low porosity hair, is to not leave it out a lot, especially in the winter. The summer is a different story, but in the wintertime where the air is very cold, I like to reduce the surface area. How can you do that? By twists. Typically, my hair is not in such small twists. Before I am styling my hair, it's usually in larger twists, but at least it keeps my hair bundled and close together, lower surface area, so much water is not evaporating from my hair. So that is another tip for your low porosity hair. One more thing you can do is when you are applying your moisturizer, to steam or heat the hair. So you'd want to steam prior to applying the moisturizer, and then you could do it with the moisturizer on the hair, because what the steaming does is it expands or swells the hair shaft and lifts the cuticles. And as much as we definitely want some of that moisture, or whatever product we're using, to be on top of the hair, we also need some of that hydration to go through the cuticle into the cortex of the hair, because that's where it has a lot of those hydrogen bonds, and moisture is really important for the bonding. So that is what you can do. You can steam ahead of time, then apply your moisturizer, and then steam with the moisturizer on. And it doesn't need to be long. It could just be like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then twist your hair. And that can help more product to be absorbed into the hair, because that's really the challenge. The challenge is getting moisture to be absorbed into the hair, so that your hair stays moisturized, and locking it in. And if you, I mean, I don't think that you need to use a sealing oil, because low porosity hair tends to retain moisture once it gets moisturized. It's just that process of moisturizing the hair tends to be more challenging than someone with high porosity hair. So if by day 3 you're finding that your hair is getting dry, I would look at your day 1 application. So how does the hair feel on day 1? Because for me, I don't like to re-moisturize my hair during the week. If I have to re-moisturize my hair during the week, that just means that I didn't apply enough product on wash day. It's my opinion and my experience that your hair, if sufficiently moisturized on wash day, depending on the temperature, depending on the environment and the season, it can retain moisture up to at least 1 week. I know as the weather is colder and it gets into winter time, the moisture retention might be a little bit less, but at least 1 week in the winter, you can retain moisture. Longer in the summer because the amount of humidity that's actually in the air itself. So you shouldn't be walking around with super dry hair in the summertime. But in the winter, I understand that, due to cold, warm, cold, warm, your hair is porous. So it will tend to lose moisture and gain moisture in different environments, depending on the level of humidity, which is one of the reasons why I don't go out without a hat on in the wintertime. And I usually do a satin lined hat, and we are selling some now, not our own brand. We are selling Cossie and Co hats. They are super cute, toques and beanies. So you can go out with your hat on in style and be protecting your hair. So outside in the winter, make sure your hair's covered. Hood, hat, it doesn't matter. Cover the hair, because the hair will lose moisture in the cold weather. But if you're inside, it's probably going to feel different. So those are my tips for low porosity hair hydration. I do know it's a challenge. It's not lost to me the fact that it can be a challenge to hydrate. But once it's hydrated, it really remains that way. Glycerin and water can be your best friend. Best friend. So if you are finding that your regular moisturizer is just not working, what you can do is you can spray your hair with a glycerin and water mix. Let's just say 3 parts water, 1 part glycerin, right? You want to start with a little bit amount of glycerin, because if you use too much glycerin, your hair can get pretty sticky. So we don't want that. We want to start with as low amount as possible. Spray it on your hair in place of water. So let's say you're adding in a moisturizer at nighttime. You would spray your hair with a little bit of the glycerin and water mix, and then add your moisturizer, and then you would twist. So instead of just water, you would amplify it with a humectant. So you can do that. So hopefully that helps. So Tamara, she is type 4, and she has type 4 and type 3 curls, medium strand thickness, not sure of her porosity. And she says when she applies her stylers, so the hair butter and the gel, after washing and conditioning, her curls are pretty tight. Then by day 3 or 4, she has a lot of stretch and big, fluffy curls. I do touch up with additional product on frizzy areas, but how do I achieve day 3 hair immediately following my wash day? Am I applying on hair that is too wet? So I am assuming from the question, Tamara, if you're on, that you want your day 3 hair on day 2. Is that correct? If that is correct, if that is correct, I'm just looking at this question answering. So she wants stretch and big fluffy curls. All right. So if you want day 3 hair on day 2, what you would probably have to do is apply less product on day 1. And here's my line of thinking, because as the gel cast, so when you apply a product for wash and go, if your day 1 hair is really frizzy, it is just going to get frizzier and frizzier and frizzier as the days go on. It doesn't all of a sudden get tighter and more defined as the days go on. It gets frizzier and frizzier because that gel cast that was on the hair in on day 1 is now beginning to break up, and your hair gets fluffier and fluffier. So, in general, if you want really big curls on day 1, you would apply more water and less gel so that your hair is really big on day 1 or day 2. And then as the days go on, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But here's the thing, when you want big curls, you sacrifice definition. You can't have both. So, you can't have big and defined. You have to have big and less defined, which is fine. Like some people like that look. It's a softer looking curl, but it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the days go on. So what that does is it limits the longevity of your style. So if your hair is less defined on day 1, because that's how you like it might last you 4 days before there's very little definition and you have to redo it. Versus if your hair is very defined on day 1, as the days go on, your hair gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that style could last 14 days or 20. I've had people 21 days, they have gel in their hair, um, because it's still defined. And at day 14 is when they love their hair. So I'm telling you the extremes, because the principle is, if you want big and defined on day 1, less gel, more water, or a product with less hold. So maybe instead of the regular jelly, maybe go with the regular gel is giving you more definition, but you day 3, but the light jelly would give you maybe day 3 hair on day 1. So that's just the principle. The more defined your hair is, the longer it lasts and the less you have to redo your hair. But if you want big and fluffy from the outset, then probably less gel and more water, because it results in less definition. And it sounds to me like you like that big fluffy look with less definition. But just keep in mind, if that is your day 1 or day 2 hair, then by the time you get to day 5, you'll have very little definition left. So you're exchanging the longevity of the style, you're sacrificing that for the bigness. So just keep that in mind. All right. And SS, she has curly type 3 hair and type 4 hair, not sure about her strand thickness and not sure about her porosity. So she asked 2 questions. How do I avoid flaking after the Max Curl Enhancing Jelly has set and dried on my hair? And how do I avoid the whiteness that shows when my hair is damp and I'm applying the Max Jelly, and sometimes shows on my hair after it's dried? Note, she uses the Curl Quench hair butter beforehand. So with respect to the jelly, flaking can occur for so many different reasons. And what we have kind of put it down to is sometimes it's the application process. So with the Max Jelly, it is a very gooey kind of sticky product, which means that when you apply it, it gets clumped into the hair. What we've noticed is and taking a good look at this product, because at the end of the day, I've tried other products and other types of polymers, because we are changing this product to make it less flaky, is that the stickiness is required for the definition. There's a difference between hold and definition. Hold is I can have soft definition or soft curl clumping with a lot of hold, meaning it's stiff, but I don't have a ton of definition, if that makes sense. Definition is provided by the level of stickiness of a polymer, which means that the more the polymer clumps the curls together and holds them in place, the more definition you're going to get. And each person's hair type and texture is different. So one person might just need a soft holding gel to get a lot of definition, whereas somebody else might need a stickier gel to get a lot of curl clumping, i.e., definition. The hold is a little bit of a different story in that once the curls are clumped together, how long does it stick there? Right? What is, and so that I'm making this distinction between the two. So with the Max Jelly, you get a lot of hold and a lot of definition because it's a sticky product. The problem with the jelly is that it's very gooey and goopy like a glue, which means that when you apply it, if you don't apply it evenly, it can get caught in different sections of the hair, and you have a thick layer of gel on one section and a thin layer on another section. And what we found in terms of examining why the flaking occurs is that if there is not an even distribution of product throughout the entire length of the hair, very even, then what can happen as it dries is it flakes. The other issue we found is that if your leave-in product is not dried in completely first, then you're more prone to get flaking. We've also found that certain people, it's not everybody, it's just these are the people that have gotten flaking from the product, that if the hair is wet when the jelly is applied, like soaking wet, when it dries, you get flaking versus when it's a damp application. I know it's pretty weird the way that happens, but we found that as well. And what we've also found is that if you have really, really, really tightly curled hair, like coily, and you use the jelly, what tends to happen is as we apply the product and the hair stretches, everything is fine. So you have this even layer of product applied through the section. But then something happens called recoil. So as the hair recoils, what tends to happen is as it springs up, the jelly is caught in the twists and turns of the hair. And what can happen there is flaking once the hair dries. So what we like to do when we apply the Max Jelly is I like to have my leave-in product dry into my hair completely. I don't want to see any white, nothing like that at all. I don't really use the hair butter underneath the Max Jelly because I find that in terms of one of the most incompatible products with the Max Jelly, it's the hair butter. And it could be because of the amount of conditioning agent that's on the hair that actually sits on top of the hair. It could be the bunch of the amount of oil. So for my hair specifically, I do not use the hair butter underneath the jelly. I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but this is what we found. So when I use the Max Jelly, I will typically use the light leave-in conditioner. Then what I do is I will mist my hair with water to make the hair damp once I'm ready to apply the Max Jelly. And then I apply the jelly. So I'm looking for like a glued together look to the actual section. Then what I will do is I'll put another layer of water on. I'm not making the hair wet. I'm misting to make it damp. And what that does is it smooths out the gel. So, and then at the same time, I'm removing excess product as I'm doing that. So I remove excess product. So I apply a whole bunch on and I remove excess. The reason I apply a whole bunch on is because I like my hair almost to get the definition I want. It kind of has to be like this. It has to look like it's glued together. And the only way to do that is to apply a bunch of jelly to my hair initially. And then as I'm styling it or as I'm shingling it, I do remove excess product. So I do a layer of gel, a layer of water, put the gel on, and then I'll put another layer of water on it, remove excess jelly, and then I'll start to shingle. I do not rake. So doing this with the Max Gel is going to result in clumping. So if you are raking product through, especially if you have really coily hair, that is going to clump the hair. So the jelly, remember, it has to be evenly distributed throughout the sections of hair, and excess product has to be removed. So I achieve that by shingling. So shingling is taking small pieces of your hair. So let's just say I have a layer of jelly on top here. If I'm going to shingle, I am going to take this small section and I'm going to twirl this around my finger and pull it all the way to the ends. But as I'm doing that, I'm removing excess product. So I have tension on my hair and I'm removing excess product. So I will do that throughout my whole section. So I'm creating individual sections, which gives me a lot of definition, but I'm also removing excess product at the same time. And I'm very meticulous about making sure that when I'm applying jelly, I don't necessarily apply a whole clump of gel close to my scalp. Excuse me. The reason is that you have a porosity gradient from the hair emerging from the scalp all the way to the ends. The hair that is closer to the scalp is going to tend to be a lower porosity than the hair towards the ends. And the reason that happens is because of weathering, a concept called weathering, where the hair just gets progressively more damaged the closer to the ends. And so what you find is that the hair at the ends, when you put gel on, it looks different than the hair closer to the scalp. The hair might be puffy up here versus not puffy down here. So what people tend to do is they tend to put more product up at the top, which is where a lot of people get the flaking. So what I like to do is I like to put more water at the top to basically flatten down the hair a little bit, dilute the gel a little bit so that it doesn't flake at the top. So a lot of this is really technique. A lot of it is technique. And I know it's like, okay, it's so much work. It's so much work. It definitely is. I'm not going to lie. But with this specific gel, if you're experiencing flaking, there's got to be that extra time to take to remove excess product. Some people use it with no problems, but I'm talking about those people that, they're experiencing those issues. Those are the troubleshooting steps that I would actually take. So raking doesn't really work so well. Shingling works better. All right. And then I'd have to know when the flaking occurred too. Was it day 2? Was it day 3? I mean, as the style gets older, because it is a stiff gel cast, it will tend to break apart and tend to flake more. The whole objective with the new product is it takes a longer time to flake. So that is the objective. It eventually will, but I'm trying to get to maybe day 10 to 14 before it starts to flake significantly. Okay. So I'm going to take a look at some questions here. All right, just bear with me, seeing if I missed anything. All right. So, what causes tenderness of the scalp, specifically at the top of the center of the head? If you're having scalp tenderness, there could be some type of inflammatory process that's happening. I know some people have a real sensitivity right there. And I am wondering who ever asked this question, if you are having or experiencing any hair loss on the scalp as well. So it's typically due to an inflammatory process that is happening right here. So sometimes it can be a precursor to hair loss. Sometimes that's what I found. So there's an inflammation. So I'd want to know if there's anything that was placed on the scalp, if there was any injury to the scalp, any type of issue in that particular area. But I'd want to know also if there's any thinning. What of your product do you recommend for alopecia? So with respect to alopecia, there are so many different types of alopecia with different causes. So I'd really want to know the type of alopecia you have. So alopecia is basically a broad term for hair loss. There's traction alopecia, there's types of scarring alopecia, there's androgenetic alopecia, which is male and female pattern hair loss. There's scarring types of alopecia. So I'd want to kind of find out what the cause of the alopecia is in order to properly make that recommendation. Have any suggestions if you're a person that overproduces sebum but has dry hair? I just don't know how to move it down my strands without daily manipulation. So, for the person that asked this question, are you is your scalp oily, but your hair is dry? Is that what's happening? And if that is the case, then yes. I mean, because of the twist, and it depends on your hair type and texture too. So if you have really coily hair, then the sebum does get trapped in the twists and turns of the hair. So it really doesn't make it down to the ends of the hair, which is one of the reasons why type 4 hair tends to be so dry and does require moisturization. But you can moisturize your hair on wash day. Like that's when I really do a lot to moisturize my hair. I do it on wash day. I super moisturize it so that during the week, I'm just maintaining my hair. I do nothing to it, like literally, because it's so hydrated. So yeah, I'm trying to find out if that's what's going on. Chantel. Yeah, Chantel. Okay. All right. Sharon says, are your products available in a store? And if yes, where? Sharon, where are you located? We do have locations for boutiques and salons in different areas. So just depending on where you're located, I can point you in the right direction. Also, my sides tend to break and don't retain length. What can I do to help the sides grow back? So the question, if you have breakage of the sides, is it sounds to me like it might be traction alopecia related without knowing more about this specific situation. If it is traction alopecia, then one of the reasons for traction alopecia is pulling. So if you're doing any styles that are pulling on the hair shaft, if your hair's up in a ponytail or back, or if you're wearing a headband, or if, for example, you're wearing any braided styles that are causing excess tension on the sides of the hair, then that could be a reason for the breakage. If you're experiencing breakage and your hair's dry, then you definitely want to moisturize it more because brittle hair tends to break easier. If there's if there's another reason for the breakage, then let me know. I mean, you can definitely email me and ask me those questions. But typically, if you stop wearing your hair in the specific style that's contributing to the breakage, then that would definitely help. And also, the restorative hair mask is very good for breakage. What it will do is will help to fortify the hair structure. It contains keratin and it contains hydrolyzed proteins, which go in and strengthen the hair and kind of temporarily patch up the hair if there's any cracks in the cuticle or anything like that. And it will also strengthen the hair. So that's one product to use as your deep conditioner to help reduce the weakness of the hair. Right, just looking to see if there are any more questions that I missed. Okay, perfect. So if there are no more questions, just checking here as well, then thank you everyone for joining me. Yes, it is recorded. Yeah, and I will be posting it. All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and I will see you next week. If you have any questions that you think of after this live is over, please send an email to info@earthtonesnaturals.com, and we will definitely be sure to answer your questions as best we can. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. I'll see you soon. Bye.